Yay! So I'm glad you're here. Today we are discussing the heart triad, which is the type 2, which is the helper or the giver, type 3, which is the performer or achiever, and type 4, which is the romantic or artist. And so we even have a couple of type 2 here and a type 3 to be interviewed today. And I'll be offering some thoughts as well, as I'm a type 3 with a 4 wing, so I can maybe speak a little bit to the 4s. So Lacey is my fabulous type 2. So Lacey, how long have you been familiar with Enneagram? Have you known about it for a while?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. I was having a hard time logging in.
Me too. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I thought it was me. So, I would say I've been paying attention to the Enneagram for probably a year, but I've only known my type for maybe 6 months or so.
Okay. And how did you discover you were a 2?
Well, I started reading and I wasn't exactly sure at first, but every time I saw 2 Enneagram memes, I was like, oh, I can really relate to that. I always thought it was really funny. Well, then a lot of people started saying oh, well, you might only be a 2 because you're a mom. So think back before you were a mom, because maybe you aren't. And so then I was having kind of well, maybe, but I still kind of felt like I could relate to a lot of the 2 things. Well, then I took the test and I got really high in 6 and really high in 2. So I had a really hard time figuring it out. And then I actually read, I was on the Enneagram Institute and I had Kevin, my husband, read a type 2 and a type 5, which is what he is, the relationship. And then I had him read the 6 and the 5, and he was laughing and he was like, babe, there's there's not even a possibility of you being anything else. And I was like, okay.
It is nice to have a spouse weigh in on that, isn't it?
Yeah, it was helpful.
Well, so what do you love about being a 2, and what do you wish people knew about being a 2?
I think my favorite part about being a 2 is just that it's easy for me to walk into a room and kind of see the needs of others. I tend to really pick out pretty quickly if someone is sad, if someone is happy, if someone needs help. I hear them very instinctively. I just hear if people, whether it's emotional needs or physical needs. And it's fun for me because it has really given me some deeper relationships instead of just surface level type things, because I tend to, hear and see, and I see those needs, and then to meet them.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I wish I had that ability, to be honest. They talk about the 2 and I'm like, gosh, I don't even know what that's like, but maybe that's because I'm a 3. So what do you wish people knew about your type?
I was thinking about that question today, and I think it's hard, but I think on a positive, I think that they would know and realize that we love that it's not a burden when they share things. I really feel like it's hard, for a lot of different types, especially when we're talking about Enneagram. It's harder for people to be open and honest and share the things that they need, because they feel like they're burdening or they don't want, other people to know. But for us, and for me, I just think that that's how I feel most loved. So if one of my friends chooses to call me and either share a physical need or an emotional need, or they share that they have a bad day or whatever it is, I feel the most loved. Oh, they must really care about me because they called to share this particular thing with me. But I think a lot of people feel that it's a burden, and I just think that it's not at all. It's not a burden.
That is really great to know, because it's true. I often feel like I'm burdening people if I share my problems with them. But if you're the kind of person that likes to be a problem solver and a helper, you feel loved that way.
Yeah. And sometimes it's even not about meeting the need. It's just, I think, knowing that they chose to share it with me is, a lot of times what I have found is really meaningful.
Oh, well, that's good. I will keep that in mind. I'm going to call you next time I have a problem.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes sometimes even if it's just like listening, like, oh, I just need someone to listen about this thing, that really fills my tank up. So
Now, how do you feel the same way when somebody listens to your problems?
No.
Really? Okay.
No, it's harder for me because I feel more, I wouldn't say, so I don't identify totally. I think my wing comes out quite a bit, which my wing is a 3. And I think my wing comes out stronger in these areas. So it's very, very hard for me to ask for physical needs from someone else. It's very hard for me, like if I need a babysitter, if I need help with a home project, if my husband and I need help, with something under like along that lines, it's hard for me to ask for help. But I haven't found it's overly hard for me to share. I'm such an open person that I can share my feelings very openly. So some of that with the 2, I don't 100% relate to, but I definitely do with my physical. It's very hard for me to ask help in a physical way.
Okay. Good to know. Well, so how has it helped you? How has knowing Enneagram, knowing your type, realizing you're a 2, how has that helped you?
I think the biggest area is boundaries. It's really helped me identify that I have to set really healthy boundaries in my life, because for me, loving more people, building more relationships, as wonderful as that can be, it often means that I wear myself to like nothing. Because it's very hard for me to just know someone without really, really giving them, really
Okay, we
giving
lost
them,
you for a second there, but you're back.
yeah, okay, good. So it's really hard for me to like have a lot of friends and not help every single one of them all of the time. And so I have really learned that I have to create these really healthy boundaries in my life, because that helps me help others in a better way. So I think that's been kind of the most helpful for me, is just that. And I used to think that I just couldn't make new friends. Because if I make more friends, then that just means I'm going to run out of time to be able to, I mean,
Help them all.
right. I mean, I'll be in the grocery store and the person next to me in like the aisle will start crying and telling me about how their dad just died or something is going on. Like, I just tend to draw out that type of, in people. So if you can imagine, when I start to really get to know people and they share all of their problems with me, I really take that on. So I think the most beneficial thing for me is just that I have learned that boundaries they're not a bad thing. They're a really good thing.
Oh, that's good. Well, it's good that you've learned that. And that's part of why we do this. It's so good to have, a self-awareness, right? It's key. Thanks for sharing. Is there anything that anybody would like to ask R2?
How has it looked to create those boundaries? What does that look like for you?
It's mostly just honestly having to say no when I hear a need. And sometimes, I can say yes, but like one really practical way that I have done this in the last year is I don't take meals to people anymore. For like meal trains. And that sounds kind of like a silly thing, but it used to be incredibly challenging for me to say no to that. And in a church our size that we go to, there is often a meal train like once a week I could probably sign up for.
Yeah.
And so I have just had to say no to all of them. And now a lot of times what I do is I just buy a gift card for whatever is happening to whoever. I go into the store, I buy a Walmart gift card. Actually, what I tend to do is I just keep a pile in our desk, so I have them.
Very good.
Different pizza places or restaurants, and I just mail them a gift card instead of doing a meal, because it was just something that ended up not being good for me. So that's like a really simple, practical thing that I've done. But another thing is I have just really learned that it's okay to make a friend and not have to go very deep with that friend. So I love them well. I like to get to know them, but that doesn't mean that I have to say, oh, why don't you come over? And then I listen to them for hours and hours, because that's what I used to do. I used to feel like if someone was my friend, I had to know them on a very intimate level, because as a 2, it is very hard for me if I think that somebody doesn't need me. So that tendency is very strong for me. I can really identify with a lot of that in a 2. If I feel like my friends don't need me, I really feel like they don't love me. They kind of go hand in hand. And so it can get kind of complicated. So I think those are some kind of practical things that I'm trying to do, but I'm still learning, what does that mean? Because I don't like people. I still have to really fight it.
Yeah, that's great.
Those boundaries.
Well, and for me as a 3, I don't want to have too many friends because they're going to take time away from my work. And I've got lots of things to do, but I also need friends. So that is the debate of the 3. So let's transition to Chelsey, who's our 3 interviewee, our achiever. So Chelsey, how did you discover that you're a 3?
Well, I read a book that all my friends said that I should read. So
you're newly discovered that you're a 3.
Yes, very newly discovered. This is interesting because I'm a 3 with a 2 wing. So I feel like Lacey and I balance each other out here.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what are you learning so far, and what do you wish people knew about you and your type?
Well, I wish that I knew this about myself sooner. I think for me, it's been about self-awareness. I get really frustrated with myself a lot because I'm an achiever, but then I find myself making terrible decisions consistently that do not take me any closer to my goals. And that's this super frustrating thing for me as a 3. And so this has made me more self-aware to recognize those unhealthy tendencies and to go in a different direction, or, just work on the daily disciplines of saying yes. And that's going to lead to my success. It's not a big moment. It's all the little moments leading up to that point. So that's been the biggest thing for me.
Sure. And also, yeah, I agree with that. It's like I did a triathlon once, and I've done 5Ks, and the best part is race day. What I hate is the training part. Yes. In the training part. But race day, I've got all the energy, and I think that makes sense. I can see that. And it's true that the way to set yourself up for success is to do those things that nobody's seeing. But that's where you're going to build the character and the strength and all of those things, not just the performing opportunity. So,
well, and you would ask too, like, how does this, what I want other people to know? I think this has helped my husband to affirm me more. I've always struggled with figuring out my love language. But when it comes down to it, it's words of affirmation. I want to know that I'm doing a dang good job. And I want you to tell me about it. Please.
And tell me all about it.
Tell me all about the great things that I'm doing. And so I think that that's been really powerful with my relationship with Zach, is just, he's understanding that more. And, and I'm realizing that in order for those relationships to blossom, I need to stop being so busy and step back and learn how to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. It sounds a little bit like you're answering my next question, but how has this helped you? Any other ways that it's helped you understanding that you're a 3?
I think it's really explained a lot of my childhood. I really thought that it was just all my dad expecting me to be a certain way, but really, I think it was just the way that I was and the way that I am, in the way that I related to my dad, because I think he is also a 3. And so I think that had I known this at the time of growing up, and like I say, look at your 20s, I probably would have changed the way I did things. And I know I'm learning to just be loved for who I am and not what I do or create or accomplish. And so I'm really learning to pause. Resting is really hard for me because I feel like if I'm not doing, I'm not accomplishing. And therefore, who's going to love me, right? Even though I know at my core that that's not true, that's still how I feel. So even like with Zach and I working out, weightlifting, you have to rest between sets. And it drives me crazy because I'm just standing there for like 2 minutes and it seems like an eternity. And I told him, I was like, we got to figure something out here because I can't just stand here for 2 minutes. Like I need to do something. And he's like, well, he explained it to me that you actually need time for the white blood cells to like go through your body again so they can go to a new muscle group.
Wow.
To be effective. And I'm like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense. Okay, I can slow down a little bit. But yeah, it's really helping me to just be so much more aware of myself, why I do what I do, and not get so frustrated in myself.
Well, that's good. Well, and what you said about your dad, I think that poses a good question. And maybe some of you in the group know this, like, are our personality types, are they nature or are they nurture? And my thought on it is it's probably a little bit of both, you know, but has anybody heard anything about that? Like, can we get them from our parents, or is it, of course, we're raised by our parents. So there's that. Emily, do you have something to add?
I think it can kind of depend. Like Sydney was a born 7. Like that's not coming from anybody. She just was born straight up like that. And I think based on what my parents tell me, it's the same thing. Like they're very different from me. And I think like I kind of surprised them in some ways, like with the way that I acted as a kid. So I feel like it can depend. Like I think sometimes our childhood can bring out like things about us that, you know, come out in our personalities with time and stuff like that. But some of it is probably just how we were from little on. Probably, like you said, a combination of both.
Makes you wonder. So
yeah,
I think that's so true, and it helps us with our own kids, you know, to in the way that we relate to them and why they do what they do. I've been seeing that a lot.
Chelsey, what is it? Question time? Can I ask?
Yeah, feel free. Yes.
What I'm curious, like, what is like rest to you? Like, what feels like rest? Like, does resting feel like? I know you already mentioned it makes you feel kind of like restless already. But what would a break be? I'm just curious.
I like active resting. So reading a book, I know it sounds crazy. Reading a book, going for a run, going for a swim. Like for me to like go in my room and lay on my bed, no. I just no. Because I'm constantly thinking about all the things that I'm not doing. And so like a big thing for rest for me is actually getting up earlier and being more efficient in my mornings. So then, you know, I have more time with Jesus. So, I mean, technically that's active because I'm, you know, reading the Bible, I'm praying, I'm pausing to listen so he can download, which is hard. I get distracted, but I'm working on it. So yeah, it's really active resting.
Yeah. I'm a little jealous of like some of that because I feel like I have to work. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm more naturally like I like to be busy but not like efficient or always strategic. Like I sometimes feel like I get distracted really easy, and I get a little jealous of how the 3s can just like focus and accomplish and finish. That's really not how I'm wired. So I was just curious like how that looks for you, but
yeah,
that's cool.
I think it's a little, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still am scatterbrained. I'm like where you go to unload the dishwasher and then you notice that you need to wipe down your cabinets. So you're wiping down your cabinets and then you're like, oh, hey, I need to get dinner ready. So there is a lot of that too. Because my mind is always busy. And I think that
the next thing you've got to do. Yeah.
But I think the disconnect for me and the frustration happens where I have these big goals, right? I want my house to be orderly. I want my business to be thriving. I want to be in great shape. The disconnect and frustration comes in when I don't pay attention to the small details I'm doing. Because I can really gloss over them, focus on the big picture and not in the actual daily disciplines.
Yes, that makes sense to me because both the 3s and the 7s are forward thinking. And so that makes sense to me too. I'm the same way with details because I'm always in a cloud above regular life. So it's like I can relate to that. That's so fun. That's interesting.
Yeah, so fun.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, this was a great discussion, friends. We'll come back and discuss the last 3 next week, and I hopefully can get my favorite 7 here to give us an interview.
Yeah, happy to.
And by the way, all of your skin looks amazing. You're all glowing. And I know what you're using, so I can say that.
I love
All right, friends. Good to have you here. We'll talk later.
Bye.
Bye.